I'm doing what I'm doing because I am a parent of two teens, and I'm experiencing a lot of things through them that I experienced as a teen. And I look back at my life, I realized that when I was a teen, I made a lot of mistakes. And I didn't have the coaching, the parenting, and my parents were great parents. But what I'm finding is parents have a tendency to step back away from teenagers. It's a very daunting task. They're exhausted, and I'm finding a lot of teens need more attention than less. And so there's a giant gap in our culture. There's a teen dating crisis going on. There's teen dating violence. There's teen pregnancies. Teens are using alcohol and drugs during their dating process, which is really complicating things quite a bit. And so I just have a passion for teenagers to help them get involved in healthy relationships from a very early age, and so that when they begin dating and they get into love relationships at whatever age that is, that they take it slow, that they date safely, and that they make better choices. And they're, you know, it's very much about the timing of it is very much about driving and dating are very simultaneous. The desire comes on board pretty much around the same time. And so I find that if we really embrace that at an earlier age and start teaching them how to end up in relationships and driving and dating at a much safer speed, we're going to be a lot better off. The whole thing started when my son was 15 years old at the time, and we were living in Michigan, and we were going through this entire driver's ed, the logging hours. And you have to log 60 hours, and all of those hours have to be, you know, you've got to drive in the snow, and you have to drive in the rain, and you have to experience a whole lot of different conditions. And we were sitting at the dining room table, and we were filling out the logbook, and we had just come back from some night driving, and I was documenting the hours, and he says, "Mom, I can't wait till I can get my driver's license,
Well, Mom,
and I can date."
everybody knows
when you turn 16, you get your driver's license, and you can date. I said, "Honey, I missed that memo." Ultimately ended up being targeted for the parents, and when I do workshops for parents alone, I do workshops for teens alone, and then for families. And what's interesting is that when I do get the parents at a workshop, I find that there's three real main categories of parenting that's going on. I've got driving blind, tailgating, and what I call airbag parenting, which is basically deploying after the fact. And so by helping parents identify this, that's been the biggest result of this book, is that parents are realizing, wow, I need some help during this process. I pay $250 and hire a driving instructor to teach my teen how to drive safely, and I get in the car and spend 60 hours with them to make sure that they're navigating safely through the driving process. What am I doing to help them through the teen dating years? And so that's where the coaching comes in, and that's been the interesting transition from all of this. I think the biggest thing for me that I wish I had known, the two biggest things are, one, that if you take a 1-year-old and you say, okay, if a one-year-old needs 100% of your time, then a 17-year-old, do the math. A 17-year-old really needs your attention 1,700% of your time. And I always thought it was the opposite. I always thought when they were little, you really paid a lot of attention to them, and then as they got older, they were pretty much on their own, and I don't think that's the case at all. That's the first thing. And the second thing that I've learned personally and wish I had done, and I did a pretty good job of it. I've got two amazing kids, but I think one of the things that parents miss is that they don't start this process early enough. When kids learn to drive, they learn from a very early age. They're sitting in an infant seat, listening, watching, learning from 1 year old. And so then they're in a booster seat, and they're learning about road rage, and they're learning about taking a corner too sharp, and they're learning about putting mascara on in the rear view mirror, and all of these things they're watching. And kids watch what we do, and they watch what we say, they watch what we do. And so if we start the relational process at a much earlier age, we don't have to be sideswiped by it when they're 16 or 17 or 14. One of the things I talk about with parents to really help them feel confident is to give them that analogy that when their teen is driving, where are they when they're learning to drive through driver's ed? they're sitting in the seat next to them. They're invited by the state, mandated to be sitting in the seat next to them, giving them guidance. They're not sitting in the driver's seat. They don't have the wheel and the brakes and all of that. They are sitting in the passenger seat. But they're also not on the porch. They're not in the house. They don't just let their kids go. So to help parents really, instead of telling them what they should be doing, I really try to build a framework within each family and help them create some boundaries and some guidelines for their family based on their own values and their own beliefs to create an environment where it's safe to talk about. It's a topic that is not taboo. That's a really big thing. So to really just open up the conversation, I think, is really, really important, because most parents come to me and they say, my teen won't talk to me about it. So we have a really, really big job to do to make sure that these kids are actually more interested in what we have to say than what the world has to say, and that's a really tough position to be in. And again, if you're not involved in that process and transitioning all the way through, it's really difficult to just come up up to their bedroom at 15 years old and say, hey, I want to talk to you. There's something I want to talk to you about. They're probably going to tune you out. It has to be a transitional thing. What I'm about is, again, preparing them by way of an analogy and letting them make the choice. For instance, did you teach your teen to drive before you knew how to drive? No. So why is it that we allow them to go on Facebook before we know what Facebook is all about? There's a chapter called Salesman versus Pit Crew. And for me, I really recognize in my life that there are tons of kids that are impacted daily by salesmen. There might be a math teacher that says, oh my gosh, you're great in math, you should really go into teaching and be a math teacher. And they're really kind of selling them on that idea. Or there may be a best friend that's saying, hey, why don't you go to this college because I'm going there. Or a girlfriend that says, oh, date my best friend because then we can double date. So salesmen are prevalent. But a pit crew is different. A pit crew is when you actually hand select a group of people that you really, really trust and admire that are going to give it to you straight. And you're going to meet with them, and they're actually going to sit down with you. They can give you the information about whether or not you're going to crash and burn, whether they see something that's really a red flag, and they're basically your eyes and ears when you're in love and you can't see clearly. So I'm a certified life coach, I'm a public speaker, I'm a facilitator, and I just have a passion for teens. The most rewarding thing, I think, for me is seeing the shift and restoring relationships. When I see parents and teens that have a complete disconnect and bringing those relationships together and helping support that framework so that they're able to move forward in a way, and I call it the family road trip, where they're actually experiencing life together as a journey, and they're not so disconnected. Visit my website. I do a weekly blog. I really believe in keeping people up to date on the culture and what's going on. So my website is www.datersed.com, and they can go on. You can visit me on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm very tech savvy for a mom.